What's up, YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Faith. I'm a locational astrologer as well as I specialize in money readings. So welcome. Okay, in today's video, I want to honor the fact that it is Black History Month. So happy Black History Month to all my fellow African Americans. And I would like to take this video to honor that fact by astro mapping a Black History event and seeing what's going on within the chart during this event. Now, unfortunately, a lot of Black History events do involve some tragedies. So disclaimer, trigger warning, if you're not in the mood to watch something like this, then just go ahead and slide to the next video. But if you are a bit of a history buff and you want to combine some astrology, specifically locational astrology, this video is for you. So we are going to take a look at Black Wall Street today, okay? So for those of you who have never heard of Black Wall Street, it was a street, or it might have been a couple of streets, but it was a community in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the Greenwood area. So Greenwood, that was the community. And it was a street full of hundreds of Black-owned businesses in the 1920s, okay? Or just the early 1900s. So a guy, I'm not gonna say an entrepreneur, but a guy from, I believe he was from Arkansas, named O.W. Gurley, actually bought about 40 acres of land in 1906, anywhere from 1905 to 1906. And he bought that land and he specifically made it a point to only sell it to other African Americans. So as he did this, more and more people bought up different lots of the land to create businesses. Now, it wasn't necessarily a luxury. It was more so done out of necessity because this area, this is still during segregation, right? So this area was segregated. So there were a lot of institutions, restaurants, pool halls, schools, all kind of things where it was segregated, where it was whites only. And in this area, it was predominantly African Americans. So they created this street out of necessity to still get what they need without the risk of being kicked out or, being oppressed racially, et cetera, et cetera. So before I hop into the map, a few things. Number one, we aren't going to be looking at astrocartography today. We're actually going to use what's called geodetic mapping. So the geodetic map is very, very similar to astrocartography, but what it is it's no birth chart. It's just the astrology of place, literally. So on a geodetic map, the whole globe is divided into the 12 zodiac signs. And from there, this is where you get the planetary lines based on that mapping. This form of locational astrology has been around for centuries. So it's normally used for mundane astrology, which brings me to my second point. If you're unaware, mundane astrology is more so used for predictions as far as world events, politics, cultures, nations, etc., etc. So it's more of a focus on the collective and what's going on in the world versus personal birth charts, natal charts, etc., etc. And similar to astrocartography, it's more personal. Astrocartography is more personal. You're using your natal chart or a time of birth and then going based on this thing. But with geodetic mapping or geodetic astrology, you can still put in the time and the place, but it's more so about what planets were going over that map at that time or that place at that time. All right, so I wanted to make sure that I included this vocabulary so when I dig into the map, everyone isn't confused or, thinking that I pulled a certain astrocartography map or a certain birth chart for this event. I actually don't have the exact time as to when this happened. I even wanted to look at when Black Wall Street, like when he bought these 40 acres of land versus, if you're unfamiliar with the story, in 1921, June 1st of 1921, there was a massacre and now that street no longer exists. So over 300 people died, 800 people were injured. And I guess I can give the backstory before I hop into the map. But basically, allegedly on May 31st, a Black man raped a white woman in an elevator of, I think, a hotel. It didn't go to trial. So there was no trial. There were no actual evidence, but just based on that fact, a white mob took action, or based on that allegation, I should say, because it wasn't a fact at that time. So, based on that allegation, a white mob took action and pretty much burned the street, like burned it, was pouring kerosene and just adding fuel to the fire, like trying to destroy the street, which it pretty much did. This is something that I like to remember simply because it is a form of Black excellence. I mean, this place had, I think, three to five hotels, 3-story hotels, and I think one or two of them were 2-story hotels. Grocery stores, laundromats, pharmacies, pool halls, dance halls, restaurants, everything that you could think of, and shoe stores, shoe shine stores. Again, everything you could think of. I think some stores or some businessmen even sold cars. So I think this is a great example of Black excellence. And I think, despite the tragedy that happened due to racism, I mainly want to highlight this history as something to encourage Black people to come together the way that they did. I mean, some of these people were actually enslaved in their own lifetime, or their children were like first generation free people. So still, for them to survive such a tragedy and then come together and have such a beautiful mindset and work in a positive and peaceful community, I think is something to remember, but also take notes to act upon. So if you don't really like, the tragedy side and it's triggering you, then don't watch this video. But I was just really curious to see what planetary bodies were moving across the map during the time of the massacre and what energy was at play here. So stay tuned. All right, guys. So we are here on the map. And again, this is the geodetic map. This is not the astrocartography map. And so this scene happened on June 1st, 1921 in the morning. I don't know the exact time, but I just put 8 a.m. But before I even dig into that, I want to go back a day just because, and let's just do around 5 p.m., 5, 6 p.m. Just because, again, this all started from, I think this is closer to, okay, yeah. This all started because allegedly a Black man raped a white woman on the night of the 31st, and the newspaper printed that um, as fact. So, with that being said, I wanted to take a look at what was going on the 31st and then work our way forward. So, the map is pretty much the same, but one of the things that caught my eye is the fact that the moon on the ascendant is still within range. So, the moon represents our emotions, and obviously, emotions were high during this tragic event. But the moon also represents the people. So it's like you are already wearing your heart on your sleeve. And that's no shade, that's just facts. I mean, that's the energy of the moon. Sometimes it does that. Humans are 70% water, so the tides of the moon definitely affect us, whether you believe that or not. Okay, so then we go forward, the moon, so it passed by on the 31st. Now moving into the June 1st, we're at 8 a.m. back where we were. Saturn is there on the descendant. The descendant is directly related to relationships. It doesn't have to always be romantic. It could be platonic. It could just be how you are viewing your interactions with other people. Normally under this energy, Saturn energy, it represents karma, discipline, restrictions, okay? This is the time of segregation. This is the time when the white community was not allowing Black people or Negroes to enter into white-only facilities. Hence, this community was, like I said before, created out of necessity. It's also very easy to be the villain in someone else's story under a Saturn descendant line, just because you have opposing viewpoints and belief systems, or it's just like you meet someone who is the complete opposite of your thinking. And to add fuel to the fire, we have this orange Jupiter descendant line. So Jupiter is also on the descendant here. And we can see that because we have opposing beliefs, right? The term Black Wall Street was actually coined by Booker T. Washington. Hence, within this community, the high school was named after Booker T. Washington. So, Booker T. Washington was all about the advancement of Black people and industrialism, et cetera, et cetera. So, his line of thinking was, hey, look at us, we're pioneers. We are coexisting in our community and you stay in yours. That should get rid of racism. That's a great thought or a great notion, but no matter how financially advanced or industrially advanced this community was, that did not stop racism. That did not stop the oppression. And that's where the clashing of the beliefs plays out as far as Jupiter. And then you have Uranus also on the ascendant. So this is again directly affecting the people. Uranus is a disruptor. It represents disruption, instability. I call it the plot twist planet. It also represents advanced technology, aircrafts, and industrialism. So that goes hand in hand there as far as that engineering and pioneering. But it also represents electricity. It represents fire. And this massacre happened because the city or the street was set on fire. And like I said before, 300 people died, 800 people injured. And it was just the destruction of this community, of this street. Sorry. So the last thing that I want to talk about is this Mars line. Of course, Uranus and Mars, those planets are normally associated with war. Just historically, whenever we see some type of major wars, they are one of the planets that are normally involved. Sometimes Pluto is involved, sometimes Neptune is involved, but Mars specifically can play out as physical danger in astrocartography as well as Pluto. So with Mars being on the IC in any type of locational astrology, Mars being close to the IC is either near the third or the fourth house, usually the fourth house, which is still close to home. But then the third house also represents your local community. Mars in general represents aggression, brute force, action. So it kind of played out literally here with these lines because this mob took aggressive action and destroyed a whole street based on hearsay and allegations and didn't really wait to get the full story. And that even involves Saturn because Saturn rules time and patience. So it's very, very interesting to me what was going on during this time and how these energies continued to play out and just how people just let their emotions run wild based on these, limiting beliefs. All right, if you're still with me, first of all, thank you for hanging in there. Like I said, it is a trigger warning, and sometimes these historical events aren't always happy. If you found value in this, that is my main goal, to give you a nice demonstration of geodetic mapping while also spreading some Black history with you. So thank you for watching. And the last thing that I'll say is, well, two things. One, don't forget this month on the 18th, I have my Love Lines and Synastry workshop. Be sure to join that. I'll link that below. And two, if you are watching this before February 20th, you can still join the Foundations of Astro Mapping at a discounted price. We are going to learn all the basics of astro mapping, and I'll probably even throw in some information about geodetic mapping if everyone is, following along. And, it is a learning curve, so if everyone's up to par, then boom, throw that in there. So yeah, I hope to see you guys soon. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and share it. Also, let me know, have you ever heard of Black Wall Street, or did you learn a thing or two? But until next time, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.